So what do we really need if we want to be the parkour capital? If we want to follow up on Pat's suggestion to be just the coolest, most out there, Midwest capital of parkour, bring in the X Games, what do we really need to do? We've got infrastructure. Pat already talked about our infrastructure. We have all kinds of places where people can flip and jump and turn around and go backwards. We have plenty of infrastructure in Chelsea, and infrastructure is not the only thing we need. As Pat pointed out, a little alcohol might come in handy, although I would recommend that we not use too much alcohol, because if you have too much alcohol, of course, then you become a fatality or hopefully just a statistic at Chelsea Community Hospital. We need guts, but not just guts, because parkour is tough stuff. So you also are going to need to have brain cells. You're going to need to be able to think about the angles and the geometric designs and all of the physical principles that go into parkour. But that's not all we need, because if we're going to do parkour, we're going to have to be in shape. We're going to have to be sharp. We're going to have to be together. So what do we need? We need yoga! Look at these yogis. Aren't they awesome? I'm talking about these two yogis. They are so cool. And if you do yoga, you maybe could do some of this stuff. In fact, there might be some people here who can already do some of this stuff. Someone besides the two women on stage. Not only do you need to have yoga for strength, but if you look at the guy on the stairwell, he needs Lycra in his slacks. And the woman next to him, I think she looks like a perfect example of somebody that needs to be on what not to wear. Yoga for agility, because if you're going to be jumping and flipping and twisting and turning, you better be agile. There might be somebody in the audience who can still put their ankle behind their neck like that. I'd love to see it. Come on up, join us up here in front. Yoga for serenity, because if you're going to be backflip, double, triple flipping off the top of the library stairs, you're going to want to be able to control those fears. There will be some fears. So before there was parkour, there was yoga. And it would be foolish of all these new, wise, hip people that are doing parkour to forget the lessons that were learned from some of our historic people, our yogas, our masters, and we don't want to move away from that. So let's assume that we're going to move to parkour in Chelsea. We've got to be ready for those X Games when they get here. We've got to be strong. So gather your friends, meet us in the Clock Tower courtyard, and let's do some yoga together. Or bring your friends and your friends' friends, and let's go to Timbertown. Hundreds of us doing the downward-facing dog or the warrior pose all together while our kids are playing in the Timbertown equipment. Just anywhere in town. What if you're just having some chips and a margarita at La Fuente's? You look out the window and there's your kid, or your neighbor's kid, or your neighbor doing some yoga just right out there in the courtyard. Anywhere, anytime, anyone, we're all doing yoga. So when the X Games get here, we're balanced, we're strong, we're flexible, we're serene, and the home team is just plain impossible to beat. I think Pat could look like that guy that was hanging upside down. So if you prefer just to be a parkour spectator and not a parkour participant, there are still some things that you should know about yoga. People who do yoga look 9 years younger than their contemporaries. They have an 80% lower hospitalization rate, a 30% lower rate of infection, and they sleep better. And anybody can be a yoga. Look at the old guy in the center. Look at those kids, a bunch of teens. How often do we see teens trying to touch each other? They have a perfect excuse for that. And with yoga, you can come as you are. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need any special clothes. Look at that. Now, the guy down here on the bottom over here on your left, I think that might be Michael Phelps over there. You can bring a friend. This is actually called Doga, D-O-G-A. It's something that they do in California. Now on the next slide, you guys have 15 seconds, just like we all do. You have 15 seconds to find the 8 yogis that are buried in Chelsea. When you find them, raise your hand. What if all of us, all the time, were doing yoga? It was no big deal to see people doing yoga downtown, in our parks, and wherever you work. We can learn how to do yoga. We can go to the wellness center. We can do it through classes. We can do it with books, with tapes. Do it on your television. Do it in your living room. Do it with your kids. Do it with your neighbors. Just just find a way to do some yoga. You'll feel better, and I just want you to have fun.